Good morning, everyone. Good morning, women. Good morning, African women. Greetings from Uganda. And greetings from Kenya. Greetings from Zimbabwe. Greetings from Nigeria. Greetings from South Africa. Greetings from Lesotho. Greetings from Rwanda. Greetings from Kigali. From Burundi. From Congo. From DRC. Congo Brazzaville. Everywhere. And Mozambique. Zimbabwe. Zambia. We can name all the 55, isn't it? But we can't finish all of them. I'm inspired by Mildred. I'm inspired by all of you. I have met women here who are very strong, and they are so powerful that when I'm feeling low, I feel like I am letting them down. So I have to stand up again and again. And when I'm feeling like I'm falling down, I know that there are people like Jane Anyango. They will call me and they will say, Helen, you remember there are these young women in Kibera. There are these girls who are undergoing sexual harassment. What do we do about them? Can you support? There are women in Kisumu like Caroline Agwanda who will always send me a text and they will say, Helen, you know what? I'm having this meeting. What should I say in this meeting? I have women like Hamisa in Mombasa. They will remind me that they have decided to challenge the status quo, no matter what. And there are women who are seated in front of us. They always remind us that it's possible to take those leadership positions and shine. My sister, women must lead. Apart from the African Union Protocol, our governments also in 2015 made another commitment under the Sustainable Development Goals. And they committed to still lift African women by 50-50. Today, we are left with 9 years to the end of those commitments in 2030. Where do we stand as Kenya? Where are the women? How many have we achieved in those positions so far? Femnet and partners have been looking at tracking the commitments that our governments are making. And the commitments that Kenya is making, we are tracking to show how the country is moving forward towards achieving this gender parity. What we see, our government's committed to ensure that women in their full and effective participation have equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision-making in political, economic, and public life. That is the target by 2030. So as we talk today about where we are, that is where we are going in the next 9 years. It means we are going to ask our government. The indicators that we'll be tracking, the first indicator wants to make sure that the proportion of women held by, the proportion of seats held by women in parliament and in local governments is 50-50. That is the indicator. We will also be looking for the proportion of women in other managerial positions, those in cabinet, those in other positions. We just had one of our Mheshimiwa is introduced here. She's in charge of ensuring the registration process ensures that women will be in those positions. That is the site where you'll find the data. So quickly, what are we leaning on at country level? Our constitution is very clear. It made a commitment of ensuring that there's equal access to the positions of leadership and decision-making, that at least a third. That's the minimum. Are we there yet? That's the question we are going to discuss today. The other commitment is that if we can't achieve a third, then what should we do to make sure that we get to 50-50 in the next 9 years? So in 2019, Femnet and Partners released a report, a global report, that showed that all over the world, 2.1 billion girls and women are living in countries where, to date, we can't achieve gender equality. 2.1 billion, including us here. To date, we still cannot achieve gender equality. It's also notable that in terms of government ministerial positions globally, only 23% are women. Ministerial positions, just ministers. Ministers can be appointed even outside those who competed politically, isn't it? So why is it that our governments cannot appoint more women even into just ministerial positions? But we are also interested in women who will become heads of states, okay? Those who will stand for presidency and they will be elected and they become the presidents. So far, how many countries have had a female president in Africa? 2. Where and where? Malawi and Liberia. We clap for those countries, honestly. At least they are among the few countries all over the world, and they have pushed Africa to a higher level. You will also notice that in East Africa, although I've not mentioned it here, in East Africa, we have countries that are championing that lead. An example is Rwanda and South Africa, okay? Rwanda and South Africa. So they are leading and they are pushing Africa to a level where we feel proud as a continent. But we also need to realize that when we come back into the country, where do we stand? We are still lagging behind. So it's a key question that we are going to discuss. Of course, while a record number of women were elected in Kenya in 2017, there is still a big gap. We only account for 21.8% in the National Assembly, and we are still at 31% in the Senate. So what about at the county? The percentage is lower. So generally, this is the outlook. So for positions held by women in the National Parliament and in Senate, then we look at the ministers, we are at 22.7. That was by 2017. And as at 2019, the percentage of seats held by women at the county, we're looking at also the Supreme Court. Remember, without justice, it's difficult to achieve gender equality or women's rights. So it's key that we also monitor the leadership of women in the Supreme Court as well as in the whole judicial system. And the numbers are quite glaring. We are not yet there. We're not yet there. We are below the 50% mark. That's really annoying, because our governments have made commitments, but they're not making any progress. So this curve, if we're looking at just the ministerial positions, this is, if you see the dotted line, we would like to see growth as we head towards 2030, 32. We should be going upwards. But realistically, we have not made progress. So whatever conversations are happening now, we need to be heading towards 30. That curve. So when I say we need to bend the curve, this is what it means. For some countries, it may take 60 years to reach the 50-50 gender parity. For Kenya, it looks like this. So where we are currently is the thick line at the bottom. And where do we need to be by 2030? The thick line that goes up on the other side, the green, light green. That's where we need to go. But currently, if we are to reach there by 2030, then we need to bend that curve. You see the dotted line? We need to push that fast. Push that dotted line up to the thick line above. So if the current conversations that are going on that will prepare the way for the next election, if nothing major happens in favor of ensuring that women will be in these positions, it means there's a likelihood that we will even go down. So as we engage in the conversations, let's watch and see what is it that practically needs to be done. Because in the next election, at least the next election, which is next year, it should push us by halfway to where the dotted line is. Then the other election, which takes us to 2030, should actually bring us to the top curve. So that's where we stand. And it means people have to make radical decisions in favor of women to get into positions of leadership at all levels. That's a radical shift. So we really need to engage with sober minds, engage everyone appropriately. So without that, we can't achieve gender parity. For most of the African countries, some indicators, it will take 50 years, it will take 10 years. At least Kenya has made progress to the extent that from the calculations, in the next 10 years, which is just 2030, 31, we should be able to. The good thing is there is political will. So what do we do on ground? I think a lot of groundwork needs to be done to be able to push that curve, and we can do it. So we are doing fairly well. So let's go back with that in mind. We need to get to that. Let's bend the curve appropriately. So for me, it's more of, it's possible. The forecast shows that we can get there within the next 10 years by 2031. But it will take a lot of changes. Difficult decisions have to be made by the people in leadership to make sure that Kenya gets there. Even if we just got the 2/3, it will make a big difference. If we got 2/3 in this coming election, another 2/3 in the next election, it will make a big difference. So as we go forward in our conversation today, we are going to discuss the following contributing factors. There is gender bias. We'll hear financial constraints. We'll hear political violence. There is propaganda. There is party politics. Of course, there is a lot of retrogressive culture and social perceptions. But today we are challenging ourselves. And by the time we get out there, we shall be ready to challenge other people, isn't it? So we begin by challenging ourselves. So which of these, contributing factors are we challenging with ourselves? And then how do we go and challenge others? And what challenge are we putting forward? Thank you very much.